Good afternoon and welcome to 365 Days of Stories with Theo Mayer. Here we are on day 83 and I'm continuing the story of the Firebird. Now remember that Lishka had led Prince Ivan to the castle where Zlatovlaska lived, the woman with the golden hair. And he was to go and get her and bring her back to the king who had the horse Zlatorovik. So Lishka now informed the young prince that he would need to, at a low tide, travel across that sandy part of the beach, normally covered with water, to get to the castle's entrance. And once there, he instructed him as to where he would need to go in order to find the princess. And once he found the princess, Lishka let him know that there would be 2 veils there. And he was to use one of the veils to wrap the princess's body, who would be asleep. Now, one was, of course, a plain veil, and the other one was a golden veil. Now, I'm sure you already know which one Prince Ivan was to use to wrap the princess, the plain one. And if he did not, you know what will happen. Everyone in the castle will awaken, and once again, he will be captured, and who knows what will happen to him then. Well, Ivan listens to all these instructions, and off he goes when the tide is low. And he crosses that sandy stretch of beach and he gets to the castle. And as he gets closer to the castle, it's a very, very strange effect. But the castle goes from being dark, glossy black to a beautiful golden color. The whole castle now is suddenly gleaming like gold. Well, he enters the castle and goes through the hallways and the chambers, just as Lishka had told him. And finally, he arrives at the bedchamber of the princess, Zlatovlaska. And when he gets there, he can't stop looking at her. He finds her so incredibly beautiful. And her hair is such a beautiful golden color that just to look at it brings tears to his eyes. Well, he stands there, lost in this infatuation for the princess. And finally, after some time, he realizes what he had come there to do. He takes the plain veil and he wraps Zlatovlaska's body in that wrap. And he picks her up and begins to walk out of the castle with her. Now, as he does so, he suddenly reflects and he goes, "Maiden with the golden hair, certainly she should have the golden veil." He walks back, still carrying the princess. He touches the golden veil to wrap her in that. And what should happen? But the entire castle awakens. Well, he is taken before Zlatovlaska's mother. She's the sea goddess, the sea queen, is what she's known as, sea queen. And she is just immediately ready to send him to the hangman. But again, Prince Ivan tells his story. And after he's told his story, the queen says, "I will give you my daughter, so long as you can perform 3 tasks. If you can, you shall have her. And if you cannot, you will be a head shorter. Tomorrow, I will give you your tool and let you know what your task is." Well, he's put up in a room in the castle. Not too shabby, comfortable enough. And in the morning, he is led before the queen. She hands him a sieve and tells him that his task is to empty the lake that is in the garden behind the castle. If he can do this, he will be on to his second task the next day. He goes out. It's a sieve, and he's supposed to empty a lake with a sieve. And he begins to try to do this. And of course, by the time he puts the sieve in the water and then runs with it across the kind of sandy beach there, tries to get the water to the ocean, well, there's only a few drops that fall out. And he works at this for some time, and he realizes this is a hopeless task. And about that same time, it turns out that Zlatovaska is walking by. And she comes and she sees what's going on, and she says, I see you're really having trouble performing this task that my mother gave you. It seems you're unable to use the tool properly. And she says, I'd love to help you. Would you allow me to do so? And Prince Ivan says, well, of course, that'd be great. So she smiles at Ivan, and she takes the sieve in her hands, and before you know it, she has thrown the sieve out into the middle of the lake, and the lake begins to boil and churn, and suddenly it's as if the water just disappears up into the air. And before the sun had set, the lake was dry. Well, when the queen came out and saw that this first task had been accomplished, she was not at all happy by the whole thing. In fact, she was rather upset. But she knew that she had 2 more tasks in which she thought she'd be able to ensnare Prince Ivan, perhaps. Maybe she was just testing him to see how worthy a husband is this for my daughter. Well, again, his accommodations were not too shabby. There was some good food presented to him, and the bed and the bedding were comfortable. And he slept through the night, and in the morning, once again, he was led to the queen. The queen said, now, young prince, do you see out the window toward the east where the sun rises? There is a mountain there, and it is in the way of the sun coming into my windows in the morning. I would like you to remove that before sunset. I'm sure you could do that. There's some shovels out in the garden. You can use whatever tools there you would like. Well, Ivan leaves and he goes out to the garden, and he grabs a shovel and goes out to the mountain and starts digging away. By noontime, he'd hardly gotten anything done. And once again, he realizes this is a hopeless task. I will never be able to accomplish this. About that same time, Zlatovaska comes walking by, her golden hair streaming behind her, looking as beautiful as, well, Ivan was completely taken. Speechless might be a better way of putting it. She came walking up, and again she said, I see you're having trouble again with the task ahead of you. Could I help? And he said, that would be lovely. Well, she took, it was like a buckle, and it was more like a crochet needle, like a needle that she had used to bind up some of her hair at the back of her head. She took these out and she threw them out into the mountain. And as she did so, the pin-like thing began to dig, and the buckle began to carry, and it started moving the earth. And it took the earth from the high part of the mountain and deposited it down in the lower portion around the mountain. And before the sun had set, well, the mountain had been leveled to something, well, as level as a dancing, floor. Well, the queen came out and she looked, well, as dark as the night that was coming. Not happy at all. Now, as Zlatovaska had left, which she did before the queen got there, she said, "Tomorrow's task, you might have to pick me from amongst my sisters. Just know that there will be a fly buzzing around my face, and you will know me by that." Well, Ivan now knew probably what his next task was, and he was led to his bedchamber that night. For the first night in many, he slept well, for he was not worried. How could he possibly miss picking out Zlatovaska from her sisters? Certainly it would be easy. Well, in the morning, he has to be roused from his slumber, and he was brought out before the queen, and the queen led him into a room where there were 12 maidens seated on 12 stools. He had not been prepared for this, but each maiden had a wrap around her hair. He had been so taken by Zlatovaska's beauty and her beautiful hair, he'd never noticed what color her eyes were. Now he went back and forth from one princess to another, wondering which one was the right one, and couldn't figure it out. We'll leave the story there and find out what happens tomorrow. Okay, thanks for joining. I hope you have a good rest of your day.